गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनातीरवनचारी यमुनातीरवनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। श्री श्री निताय गौरचंद्र भगवान की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. We are reading from Canto 1, Chapter 12, entitled Birth of Emperor Parikshit. Text 22. Mṛgendra iva vikrānto niṣevyo himavān iva titikṣur vasudhevāsau sahiṣṇuḥ pitarāv iva mṛgendra iva vikrānto niṣevyo himavān iva titikṣur vasudhevāsau sahiṣṇuḥ pitarāv iva mṛgendra iva vikrānto niṣevyo himavān iva titikṣur vasudhevāsau sahiṣṇuḥ pitarāv iva. Prabhu ji. Mṛgendra iva vikrānto niṣevyo himavān iva titikṣur vasudhevāsau mṛgendra Mataji. What would meaning? Mṛgendraḥ, the lion. iva, like, vikrāntaḥ, powerful, niṣevyaḥ, worthy of taking shelter, himavān, the Himalaya Mountains, iva, like, titikṣuḥ, forbearance, vasudhā iva, like the earth, asau, the child, sahiṣṇuḥ, tolerant, pitarau, parents, iva, like. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. This child, translation, this child will be as strong as a lion and as worthy a shelter as the Himalaya Mountains. He will be forbearing like the earth and as tolerant as his parents. Purport. One is compared to the lion when one is very strong in chasing an enemy. One should be a lamb at home and a lion in the chase. The lion never fails in the chase of an animal. Similarly, the head of the state should never fail in chasing an enemy. The Himalaya Mountains are famous for all richness. There are innumerable caves to live in, numberless trees of good fruits to eat, good springs to drink water from, and profuse drugs and minerals to cure diseases. Any man who is not materially prosperous can take shelter of these great mountains, and he will be provided with everything required. Both materialist and spiritualist can take advantage of the great shelter of the Himalayas. On the surface of earth, there are so many disturbances caused by the inhabitants. In the modern age, the people have begun to detonate atomic weapons on the surface of the earth, and still the earth is forbearing to the inhabitants. Like a mother who excuses a child, parents are always tolerant to children for all sorts of mischievous acts. An ideal king may be possessed of all these good qualities, and the child Parikshit is foretold to have all these qualities in perfection. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhescha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So first of all, I would like to seek the blessings of all devotees so that I speak in parampara for the glorification of the Lord and my own purification, and it should be pleasing to you all. So here, The qualities of Parikshit Maharaj are enumerated in many verses. And in this particular verse, he is compared the qualities of Parikshit Maharaj. They are compared with lion, then other qualities mentioned, then also compared with Himālayas, worthy of giving shelter, and other qualities, titikṣur and sahiṣṇuḥ, forbearance and tolerant. He is forbearing like Mother Earth, and sahiṣṇuḥ like parents. So actually, in Bhagavatam, many different saintly personalities, their character is mentioned. And when character is mentioned of any personalities, we mainly refer to their qualities actually. And especially in Bhagavatam, why those qualities are mentioned of the great saintly personalities, kings. The main purpose is when we hear the qualities of saintly persons, then we also develop desire to develop those qualities. And why we develop that desire? As a devotees, we want to please Lord, and Lord is very much pleased when he sees, when he observes these qualities being developed in practicing devotees. Because in Bhagavad Gita also, Lord mentions in 12th chapter many qualities of devotees. And he clearly mentions in many verses, starting with this, Advesta sarva bhutana maitra karuna yevacha, nirmamo nirahankara samadukha sukhakshami. What is next verse? Okay, one more verse is there, two verses are there. So starting with this, he mentions that such and such a devotee who has these qualities is very dear to me. So, which one? Santushta satatam yogi maitra karuna yevacha yatatma drada niṣevyo mai arpita manobuddhir yo mad bhakta same priya. So like this he mentions. So what is the purpose of hearing those qualities? Even Krishna is mentioning in Bhagavad Gita, so that we develop these qualities, and they are very helpful. And we can attract other non-devotees or people in general to devotional service by those qualities. Actually, that is not intention, but just by when we exhibit these good qualities, people, they are attracted. Actually, in this world, we are attracted to different personalities for their, one thing is due to their opulences, and other thing is their character. Character is nothing but qualities actually. So when we are attracted by the opulences which they exhibit, and other living beings, they exhibit these qualities, the opulences in very minute percentage compared to Krishna. Actually, those opulences, they are coming from Krishna. But still we are attracted, like we are attracted to somebody who is powerful, who is influential person, like chief minister or prime minister, because of their this quality, basically influence, power. Actually, those qualities are actually coming from Krishna. Krishna also mentions in Bhagavad Gita, whatever vibhuti or whatever beautiful, whatever, anything good which you see, it is nothing but my spark. So, point here is we are attracted by the opulences and qualities. So that way, when we practice bhakti sincerely, these qualities are uh, these qualities we can develop. So that is the purpose why these qualities are mentioned in Bhagavatam. We discuss about them, we repeatedly hear them. Like Prithu Maharaj also, when he incarnated, when he took birth, then also he was glorified beforehand only for his great qualities. And many other cases we can see those. So that is why we discuss here and repeatedly hear these qualities. Actually, Kali Yuga is full of faults. Kaler dosha niderajan asti eko mahadguna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sanga paramrajet. So it is not, it does not take very great effort to see the bad qualities. Just like when we go in front of ocean, we see water everywhere. We don't have to take effort, search. So similarly, Kali Yuga is full of faults. Wherever we see, we can see faults if we wish. But when we come to devotional service, actually, we have to very carefully take effort not to see the faults. Because whatever we see actually, we are, our thoughts, our actions are made up of basically thoughts in particular. They are very much dependent on what we see in others. If we see bad in others, we are sum total of all the bad qualities. So that is why it is very, very important for us to overlook the faults which requires a lot of efforts, sincerity, prayers. But to save ourselves from those vices or bad qualities of Kali Yuga, we have to very carefully overlook the faults and try to see good in devotees. And if we see good in devotees, good qualities in devotees, Lord and other saintly persons, we discuss them again and again, we hear them again and again, then we can also develop those qualities. And that way we can please the Lord actually. So here, Parikshit Maharaj, coming back to this verse, he is compared to lion, mountain, earth and parents. Actually, once in a room conversation, Prabhupada was asked by a devotee, Prabhupada, how I can become humble and remain humble? So Prabhupada mentioned this line, which he mentions in the beginning of Purport. One should be lamb at home and lion in chase. So Prabhupada, he says, actually when you are going out and serving Krishna, you should be like lion. When you are fighting against Maya, when you are going outside, you should be like lion. And when you come back in the devotee association, you should be like lamb. You should be very humble. And that is the way in devotees, you don't have to be like lion. You have to be always like lamb. And everybody loves, even Prabhupada loves. So Prabhupada mentions this is the nice way to become humble and remain humble. Because Prabhupada mentions, many times when we are in devotee circle, we tend to be like lion. And when other people, we interact with them, many times we act very humbly, very nicely. Actually, we have to behave like that with them, but in devotee circle also, we have to be like lamb. Prabhupada mentions there. And other thing is mentioned, he was like Himālayas, and he was worthy of shelter. So here in the purport, Prabhupada mentions actually any man who is not materially prosperous can take shelter of these great mountains, and he will be provided with everything required. Both the materialist and spiritualist can take advantage of great shelter of Himalayas. So actually, just like materialist and spiritualist, in one sense, one who is not very good and one who is good, both bad as well as good person, both of them, they can take shelter, and the leader. So basically all these qualities are mentioned of that of the leader. And so Himalaya, just like Himalayas, leader also should be able to give shelter to one who is not very much advanced, one who is newcomer, a non-devotee. And then he is mentioned, he is compared with the earth, forbearing like the earth. So earth is giving shelter to both who is exploiting the earth and who is using the resources of the earth in proper way. And next is tolerant as parents. Actually, I saw the meaning of both words are similar, but I did not understand why they are mentioned differently. Forbearing, like, and tolerant. You want to mention something? Difference. I just saw the meaning. Forbearance and tolerance is same. So it is mentioned as tolerant, like tolerant as parents. So actually, parents, it requires a lot of tolerance to forgive the children and to raise them with nice character, with proper education facilities, in spite of their being rebellious or they don't want to listen to parents. But again and again, parents, they tolerate their faults, their mischievousness, and they raise their children. So actually all these qualities which are mentioned here, so these qualities we can see them exhibited in great saintly personalities, especially our spiritual master or Srila Prabhupada. And many times I have noted this, that whenever His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj, he gives class, Bhagavatam class, he reads verses. And whenever these characteristics about the Lords, about the Lord or great devotees are mentioned, these great qualities, he immediately compares it with the Prabhupada, and he mentions how Prabhupada exhibited those qualities. So similarly, we can see these qualities exhibited in Prabhupada when we read Leelamrita or other biographies. Like he was like lion. Actually, this book which is written by Maharaj, I Will Build You a Temple. This whole Juhu story, it is a great example of Prabhupada fighting like a lion or strong like a lion. Even though he was old or many reversals were there repeated, but still he was like a lion. And many other instances are also there. Many times disciples, they used to complain to Prabhupada that, government is not cooperating, they are punishing devotees, they are putting them in jails. But still Prabhupada would encourage them, give them confidence. And himself, he was like a lion always in when he was preaching. And he was also like, we can say, Himālaya mountain. Practically in the beginning of this movement, Prabhupada, he gave shelter to all hippies actually who were not having any character. And actually all these qualities, they are developed because one is very good devotee, a pure devotee of the Lord. This verse is there. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarvair gunair tatra samaste sura harav abhaktasya kuto mahadguna manorathena asati dhavato bahi. So because of this one quality, yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana, this bhakti towards Lord is there, akinchana bhakti, a pure bhakti. That is the reason why all these qualities, they want to take shelter in devotee. And we can see that in case of Prabhupada actually. Then he was tolerating or forbearing like earth or parents. Prabhupada many times when devotees, they used to leave association or they used to commit some blunder, then he used to forgive them and encourage them to come to association, stay in the association and practice bhakti and achieve and perfect the human form of life. Like one time I was hearing to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he was mentioning actually in this Juhu case, somehow this Tamal Krishna Maharaj and one more devotee was there. They, Brahmanand Maharaj, he was there. And they cancelled this deed actually. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj mentions, for next one and a half month, every day, whoever used to visit Prabhupada's room, he used to mention, actually, this person, he has cancelled the deed. And he used to chastise every day to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. But what Tamal Krishna Maharaj mentions, actually he was angry, he chastised me, but he never discouraged me. He always encouraged me and gave me opportunity to serve in Krishna's mission. So this is, this quality we can see, actually tolerating and as well as encouraging, not just tolerating but encouraging, like parents. So all these qualities we can see in Prabhupada and our spiritual master also, we can see them. And actually in Chaitanya Charitamrita, actually this verse is mentioned, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akanchana sarvair gunais tatra samaste sura. So one who is a devotee, there are all the qualities of demigods. Actually, demigods reside, they want to reside in the devotee. Actually, why demigods they want to reside or how they reside in devotee? Actually, various demigods, they control the senses actually. And because a devotee is controlled in his sense activities, whatever activities he performs, sense gratification, he is very much controlled. That is why the demigods which are controlling the senses, they want to reside. But they are very much fearful to reside in a non-devotee because they also have other bad qualities. And basically they are not devotees of the Lord. So in this verse, Prabhupada mentions about the good qualities of Haridas Pandit actually, who instructed Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami to write Chaitanya Charitamrita. So there it is very nicely, first Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he mentions the qualities of the Haridas Pandit. And then he mentions the reason why these qualities were there in him. Because we will just read those qualities or those verses. It is given in 8th chapter Adi Lila, verse from. So he is mentioning about the devotees staying in Govindaji temple. He mentions that in 53rd verse, 8th chapter Adi Lila, 8th chapter, 53rd verse. He mentions that in that temple of Govindji, thousands of servitors always render service to the Lord in devotion. Even with thousands of mouths, one could not describe this service. So he's mentioning about devotees serving Govindji temple. Then next he mentions, in that temple, the chief servitor was Sri Haridas Pandit. His qualities and fame are known all over the world. And Haridas Pandit was disciple of Sri Anantacharya, who was a disciple of Gadadhar Pandit. Then he is mentioning qualities. Sushila Sahiṣṇuḥ Shant Vadanya Gambhir. Madhur Vachan, Madhur Chesta, Madhur Dhir. So he was gentle, he was tolerant, peaceful, magnanimous, grave, sweet in his words, and very sober in his endeavors. Actually, this quality, so we are just discussing these qualities, and ahead he mentions the reason why these qualities were there or why he exhibited these qualities. He was very sober in his endeavors. So whatever endeavors he would do, he would not, it would not be very disturbing to other devotees or agitating to other devotees. Like recently Haldar Maharaji was mentioning in lecture that many times we endeavor, we take endeavors for service of the Lord. We do seva, but while doing seva, we also commit offenses to other devotees. So Guru has spiritual master, he tells us to do service, not to commit offenses. So he takes, we get benefited if we do service nicely, but spiritual master will not do anything if we commit offenses. So it is our own responsibility if we commit offenses when we are endeavoring for Krishna's service. Then he mentions next, Sabara Samman Karta Karen Sabara Hit Kautilya. Kautilya Matsarya Himsa Najane Tar Chitta. He was respectful to everyone and worked for the benefit of all. Diplomacy, envy, and jealousy were unknown to his heart. कृष्णेर ये साधारण सद्गुण पंचास से सब गुणेर तार शरीरे निवास. The 50 qualities of Lord Krishna were all present in his body. So actually, he is mentioning these qualities, and he is again mentioning that these qualities were, all the 50 qualities were present in his body. And in the purport, Prabhupada mentions that about these qualities of Krishna. So, why we don't exhibit these qualities even though we are part and parcel of Krishna? Because Krishna says, Mamaivamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. These jivas, they are my part and parcel. But still, why we exhibit all the bad qualities due to material contamination? Because when we come to this material world, due to contact with the material molds from time immemorial, we don't exhibit these good qualities which are coming from Krishna. But when we do bhakti, when we take up to the bhakti with full faith, then automatically these qualities they develop in a devotee. And next, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he mentions this verse, Yasya asti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarvair gunais tatra samaste suraha harav abhaktasya kuto mahad guna manorathena sati dhavato bahi. Then next verse he mentions actually he was disciple of um, Ananta Acharya, who was disciple of Gadadhar Pandit. Next 61 verse he says, Chaitanya Nityanande Tara Param Vishwas, Chaitanya Charite Tara Parama Ullas. So Pandit Haridas had great faith in the Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda. So this is one of the reason why those qualities manifested in him. So one is he was having complete faith, great faith in the Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, and also Lord Krishna. Therefore, he took great satisfaction in knowing about their pastimes and qualities. So one is great faith in the Lord, then deriving great satisfaction in the pastimes and qualities of the Lord. So when we see good qualities of the Lord, we should be satisfied. Similarly, when we see the good qualities of devotees, we should not be envious, which is the obvious conditional response when we see good qualities in others. We envy. So we should not be envious of the others' good qualities, but we should be deriving great satisfaction. So second pastimes and quiz, and great satisfaction in discussing the pastimes and qualities of the Lord. And this point is also important, I feel, for development of these core qualities, which is mentioned here. Very famous verse. वैष्णवेर गुणग्राही ना देखाए दोष काय मनोवाक्य करे वैष्णव संतोष. So Vaishnavera Gunagrahi, accepting good qualities of devotees. Na dekhaye dosh, never sees any fault. Kaya mana vakya, with heart and soul, kare Vaishnava santosh. He pacifies devotees with heart and soul. So here, actually, Prabhupada, so translation is, he always accepted the good qualities of Vaishnavas and never found fault in them. He engaged his heart and soul only to satisfy the Vaishnavas. So actually, when we stay in the association, when we practice bhakti, this is very important, very critical for our advancement and consequently developing good qualities, is to see always good. And actually it is not easy, it takes lot of endeavor, great endeavor, mercy, prayers of others, and our prayers also, individual prayer. So purport, Prabhupada mentions actually very nice purport, small, but it is a qualification of Vaishnava that he is adoshdarshi. He never sees others' faults. Prabhupada mentions, of course, every human being has both good qualities and faults. So every human being has good qualities and faults. And therefore it is said, Sajjana gunam icchanti, dosham icchanti pamara. Everyone has a combination of faults and glories, but a Vaishnava, a sober man, accepts only a man's glories and not his faults. For flies seek source, whereas honeybees seek honey. Haridas Pandit never found fault with a Vaishnava, but considered only his good qualities. And then next it is mentioned he was always taking pleasure in reading the scriptures, especially Chaitanya Mangal, and also reading it for pleasure of other devotees. So these things are very important when we practice bhakti. That we should not see faults, try to see good, and try to overlook faults in other devotees, so that we should we will eventually develop these good qualities and attract others to path of Krishna consciousness. So in NOD also, Nectar of Devotion, these qualities are mentioned, like 6 characteristics of pure devotional service are mentioned. So there one of the qualities auspiciousness, Shubhada. So again Shubhada, four things are mentioned in Shubhada. One is that devotee is very pleasing to others. In Shubhada, there are four subcategories are mentioned. So one is mentioned about that particular devotee who is practicing pure devotional service. He is very pleasing to others and others are very pleasing to him. Then next he mentions, then all good qualities develop within that personality. And again there this verse, Shasti Bhaktir, this verse from 5th canto, 18th chapter, it is mentioned this verse. And while discussing the angas of bhakti, Rupa Goswami he mentions, actually, if a person just exhibits good qualities and conduct, that is not considered the anga of bhakti. So what is anga of bhakti? Anga is a limb, any process, practice which if we practice, then bhakti develops, more bhakti develops. So these five potent limbs of bhakti are mentioned. Chanting, Bhagavatam reading, staying in association, in dham. So if person just exhibits good qualities and conduct, that is not considered anga. And there he analyzes actually, but if a devotee, practicing devotee, if he doesn't exhibit these qualities, then should we consider him a non-devotee? Like that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, while commenting, he mentions like this. So he says actually, even if devotees, they don't exhibit these good qualities or conduct, over the period they will be developed. And for one to develop these qualities, one should be very extremely dedicated to the Lord and this process of bhakti. Krishnonmukh, he uses this word. So it is very important. And there in NOD Prabhupada writes, actually, we can see non-devotees also, they exhibit many good qualities. Like famous Maharaj mentions about this person who had done PhD in Goswami literature, but he was in between taking break and smoking cigarette. So actually, Prabhupada mentions, even though one is very highly educated, very so-called cultured from outside, and even though they exhibit these qualities of non-violence or non-violence, Prabhupada mentions in NOD, non-violence and non-vegetarianism. So even though they are exhibited, actually they are not at all good because they are not devotees. But on the other hand, a devotee naturally exhibits gradually the good qualities. A devotee is automatically non-violent, he is vegetarian, so he doesn't have to follow the separate purificatory process of thoughts and actions, Prabhupada mentions there. So it is also important for us to understand this actually. Just when we see good qualities and conduct, we cannot just accept him as a devotee, or he will not accept. And that we can see many people, they are very good in conduct externally, but they will not accept the bhakti actually. So this is very important criterion. If one is devotee, even if he doesn't apparently exhibit the qualities, we have to overlook that and appreciate the individual for taking up the practice of bhakti with faith. So this is very important. And also, I was just thinking in 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, actually, Krishna mentions about this knowledge actually, which is essentially the transcendental knowledge of about bhakti. So in first verse he mentions actually idam tu te guyatamam praviksami anusuyave jnanam vijnana sahitam mokshase jnatva mokshase ashubhat. So there, so if so idam tute guyatamam pravakshami anusuyame. So I am mentioning this, I am giving you this knowledge because of your one quality anusuyave. So now question may come. So first we should have these qualities, then we can get this knowledge. But actually anusuyave, this particular word, the meaning it mentions that actually it is it should be free from selfishness and one should not be inimical actually. Then Lord gives this knowledge and he says, Yad Jnatva moksha se ashubhat. So whatever ashubh is there, so basically ashubh is this qualities bad qualities which we exhibit grossly due to material contamination in the heart, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mohammed sir. So, and then next verse he says, Raj Vidya Raj Guyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyakshavagamam Dharmyam Susukham Kartum Avyam. So this is Raj Vidya Raj Guyam. So one meaning is Raj Vidya, this is king, but other king of knowledge and it is most secret among the secrets. And the other meaning also is Raj Vidya is, this Vidya is meant for Rajas, that is kings, saintly kings. And Raj Guyam, it is secret of kings. So basically here it mentions, so this knowledge, basically this knowledge of devotional service, which is starting from 9th chapter up to 12th chapter. In that also, this 9th and 10th chapter is the essence of bhakti knowledge actually. So here it mentions that this is pavitram and it is uttamam. So pavitram is, it is all the purest. So if we practice, if we accept this knowledge, we become pavitram. We become all pure. So again, if we become pure, we can automatically develop these qualities. And third verse, Krishna mentions, so if this knowledge, this process which I am mentioning is susukham, to practice, to apply, then actually everybody should go to spiritual world. Nobody should remain in this material world. Like this one may ask, why all the people, if it is susukham, this bhakti, if it is very susukham to practice, to apply, then why everybody takes up to devotional service? Why people, they are still there in this material world? Why don't everybody go to spiritual world? So he mentions this third verse as answer. He says, those who are ashraddhadhana purusha dharmasya asya parantapa aprapya mam nivartante matyu samsara vartmani. So this ashraddhadhana, those who are faithless. So actually, this is also very important. When we take up to devotional service, actually we have to practice this process with great faith actually. Then we can see the transformation happening in ourselves. So whatever rules and regulations are mentioned by Srila Prabhupada, we hear them in lecture of spiritual master. We have to apply them with great faith actually. And if we apply them with great faith, then we can see the transformation in ourselves. And if we don't practice this with faith, we just practice in a mediocre way, then the result will also be gradual. Like Maharaj, he mentions in lecture, either be cold or hot, don't be lukewarm. So actually bhakti, this tivrena bhakti is very important. Tivrena means we don't have to give up everything. Just whatever things are given, basic morning program, every day we should make it a point that we read from Bhagavatam, we read Bhagavad Gita, we hear, and whatever service we do do that service, whatever service we do, always do it with a consciousness of pleasing the Lord. Because many times, it is my own experience that I am doing service for 1 hour, 2 hour, but I am just unconscious, I am just mindless, just mental platform, some thought is coming, I am just carried away by those thoughts. So this Shraddha, great faith, and practice with great faith is very important. And interestingly, Prabhupada in next verses, in one of the verses, this. So I heard Krishna mention that Maya Dakshina Prakriti, this whatever you see in this material world, it comes from me. So this, so 12th verse of this chapter, Moghasha Mogha Karmano Mogha Jnana Vichetasa Rakshasim Asurim Chaiva Prakritim Mohinim Shrita. So if one doesn't believe in these words of Krishna, that he is the maintainer, he is the creator, he is the destroyer, and he is the shelter of all the living beings. If one doesn't keep faith in this, then he will ultimately be taking the qualities of demons and he will be thrown in the demoniac species. So there in the purport, Prabhupada mentions very nice thing actually. There are many devotees who assume themselves to be in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, but at heart do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the absolute truth. I will just repeat once again, very nice. There are many devotees who assume themselves to be in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, but at heart do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the absolute truth. For them, the fruit of devotional service, going back to Godhead, will never be tasted. So actually this is very important. When we have taken up to devotional service, we have to practice this with complete faith. And complete faith means whatever Krishna is instructing in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, we have to complete. We have to give ourselves, dedicate ourselves, submit ourselves to these instructions and try to practice and that way exhibit good qualities ultimately. And Prabhupada mentions the only job, only work of a disciple is to glorify the spiritual master. That this one word is there, line is there, Ebeyash Gushuk Tribhuvan. So even though I am so much fallen, but my spiritual master's glory will increase if I become a pure devotee of the Lord. So this is very important. So I will stop here. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai.